Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I learned from my art career that the biggest things often start from the smallest of pivotal moments and triggers. So, how did I get involved with Mondrian Art Squares? Well, it all started with an art show that I went to. And how did I end up in that art show? Well, that started because I was working at a very toxic tutoring center. I had a really toxic manager. I really got along with all of my students, but sometimes the management make the work seem so much heavier than it had to be. And one of my students was studying AP chemistry. He had brought in this periodic table that showed, among other things, how rare each element was. And I was about to show him why it's a good time to be buying platinum right now. At the time, platinum was going for a half to a third of what gold was going for. Even though it's just as rare, I was going to show him that on the table. But I couldn't believe my eyes. There were plenty of other elements that were rarer than gold on the periodic table. And I got especially interested in bismuth, believe it or not. And after I had gone home that day, I did some more reading. And before I knew it, there was a 10-pound bar of bismuth on the way. And I took it to the tutoring center to use as gym weights, because I was often sitting at the center for hours on end. And then I discovered how to make art with bismuth, and then I went to my first art shows, and then, long story short, it has led up to other things. I'm a mathematician as well. Actually, my first attempt at Mondrian squares was what I was trying to do was take a sheet of bismuth and anodize it to different voltages. I didn't do too well with that, actually. It's a lot harder than you would think to selectively anodize sheets of metal like that. And then I pivoted to the foil paper and all that, and here we are. And it made me really, out of a toxic job, I was able to pull this out of it. It makes me want to go out there more, right? Even if I have to go to an event that I don't necessarily like, right? You never know what you're going to pull out of it, right? So, anyway, I wish I could be mingling more. Sometimes I'm not always as free as I can be to go out, and I wish I could afford to eat at the dining halls on campus like 3 times a week, right? And just randomly talk to people there. I really wish I could do that. I wish I could be going on vacation more, certainly, right? Actually, it's kind of funny. One of my subscribers asked me why I'm no longer doing the stargazing or competing in the computer games and all that. Well, those things chewed up a lot of time, and they were well within my comfort zone, and I wasn't really getting much out of it. And so I'd much rather have those resources to go out of my comfort zone and potentially come up with something new, right? So, for example, I recently I was talking to a friend of a friend, and it led up to there's a girl in Hungary that I've been talking to, and we were talking about potentially meeting up. And I can actually think about doing that, right? If I were competing in the Computer Olympiad, if I were going stargazing and traveling 3 times a year to do that, that might be a little bit out of. I might not have the resources to do that, right? And so I've discovered that ever since I stopped competing in the Computer Olympiad, especially, a lot of options open up, right? So I'll be talking to the girl in Taiwan, and the possibility of meeting up with her again opens up, right? And so the possibility of art projects that might cost a good amount of money, it also opens up, right? The possibility of going to an art show in Las Vegas, in Salt Lake City, that also kind of opens up, right? The network with people, and I'll have to see what I do. It's really funny because bismuth prices went up, right? And the consignment shop that I was working with got really disappointed that I took my stuff back. And he called me again and asked me if I had anything at all that I could sell. I said, well, it's got to be a good price now. And so I brought in a 6-inch geode that I made. It weighed about 4 pounds, but I had to put a good price on it. And you know what happened? I actually sold it at the higher price faster than I used to be able to sell things at the lower price. And perhaps I was pricing it too low to begin with. And so I'll have to think about that. But at the same time, right, things open up is what I'm trying to say, right? But I do want to leave my comfort zone of that as well, too. All right, that concludes the podcast for today. Please pray for my art career by leaving a dislike on this video. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.